Hi, I'm Tom Scioli, author of Godzilla's Monsterpiece Theater, a new comic book from IDW. So keep your eye out for that.
I'm Matt Zeoli.
Let's see, we've reviewed Star Trek 5.
Yep.
We've reviewed Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. So we've been hitting like what are known as the bad Star Treks. Like not according to us, but these are widely acknowledged as the bad Star Treks. They say the odd numbered Star Treks are the bad ones. But now we're going to talk about, I think, what's viewed as like the best Star Trek, the ultimate Star Trek movie.
Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, The Wrath of Khan. And
you just got to see it on the big screen.
Yeah, I got to see it. I recently went to a live appearance by William Shatner, which included like a screening of The Wrath of Khan. Now, this, I don't know what they were using as like the source for like the screening, because it was not a great print or whatever. Obviously not a print. Like, I don't know if what the source, if it was like a VHS or whatever, but it it was very high contrast. So like the shadows were very deep. So, and again, I've seen this movie a million times, so I wasn't like, that didn't bother me. I thought like, oh, this is like a different way of watching. This is almost like a noir version of it, because like the shadows were so deep. Like, and it was kind of interesting in some of those scenes, like with the bugs going in their ears and stuff, because the shadows were so deep that you didn't exactly see it like super clearly. So it was a little scarier,
I believe,
in this screening, because in this like I love those parts of this movie, but you do kind of get caught up with like the special effect looking at it, because it's like it's not quite convincing. Like it's still like gross and whatever, but it's still not quite convincing. But if you add a little bit of darkness, then it's like,
oh my god,
what's going on there?
The first Star Trek I saw was 3.
Okay, yeah.
So this one was
too.
middle school almost when I saw this.
Okay, yeah. See, I saw it like I was little when I saw it, but I saw it in the theater, like Star Trek 3. When I was like super little, this was like the advent of like VCRs and stuff. And I remember like going in Video Village. It was like a Philadelphia like video store or whatever. And like they'd have that playing on the TV. So I remember seeing like the scene with like Spock on Vulcan. I remember seeing that like just playing at Video Village, because you think about like the early days, like what movies did they have? This would have been like the early 80s, like before like VHS really took off. It might not even have been VHS. It might have been like a beta of it, but that was one. And then I remember like we didn't have cable, but my grandmother had cable at her house at the shore. So that's when I would get to watch.
We
didn't
have cable either.
Yeah, I'd get to watch it there. And so this must have been like early 80s when it was like on, HBO or whatever. But I remember just seeing like the scene where they're going through the transporter and they get kind of like messed up. Yeah. Those guys and I remember being a little freaked out by that. So I think, the first like Star Trek movie I saw from start to finish was Search for Spock in the theater.
Same here, but it was Search for Spock on television. In elementary school, it might have been the network premiere of Search for Spock.
What do you think makes this one like stand out? Like, why is this like the Star Trek movie?
Shatner's running on like, there's something about Shatner in this one that like he just pops extra hard in this. Yeah, I mean it's like the whole crew really.
There's a lot of drama. Like first of all, they start with like like almost like a James Bond thing. They start with kind of like an exciting opening.
Yeah.
With like what you're looking, laser zapping and stuff exploding, and then you get almost like a fresh start after that. And they go real deep into character stuff. And they're like, and they're talking about the elephant in the room. They're like, okay, all you Star Trek people, you guys are getting fucking old. Like you're getting, Star Trek the Motion Picture, 78, I think it came out, or 78 or 79. But it's like, okay, they're still kind of holding it together. Like they can still almost kind of pass for being like the same people they were in the 60s. It's only been 10 years, 1969 to 1979 or whatever. It's only been 10 years. So it's like, okay, they're in their 30s in the original Star Trek. Now they're in their 40s in Star Trek 1. By Wrath of Khan, they're like maybe in their 50s or approaching 50, and it's like, it's like you're not like action heroes anymore. So they address sort of like mortality, getting older, and they like and using like Captain Kirk as the focal point, also as like the one who sort of was the action hero, like most represents, like McCoy was a little older. Like you don't have to be an action hero to be the ship's doctor. And then Spock, he was an action hero to some degree, but he's also like, he's from another planet and stuff, you know, and he's more logical and stuff. But like Kirk was like the you know, he was like the young guy running around punching people. You know, he was like the Elvis, you know, of the thing. You know, Shatner, I referred to him as TV's Elvis, and that's how I think about him. It's, you know, he's also, you know, the Elvis of movies. You know?
This is such a different movie than the first one.
Yeah, well,
it just like,
well, because the first one, it's like
course corrected.
Yeah, they gave it they tried their best, and then it's only when you see it projected on the screen that you're like, oh, this is wrong. This doesn't work. This doesn't work. And they realized that, like, yeah, you got to go deep on character because like we care about these characters. Like, yeah, we love all the spaceships, we love all that stuff, but the characters are at the core of it. And so they really go deep. Like they do a ton of like setup and character stuff right up front. Like right after that that action opening, it's like a lot of character stuff, a lot of like, you know, brooding Captain Kirk and his friends giving him birthday presents, and everything's a reminder of his mortality. The clocks are in his room. You hear the clocks ticking, like the clocks ticking on him. So this is like a you know, a movie about mortality, but then they deliver with, you know, the excitement, the fun, and you have an amazing villain. The villain's like always the star, and Ricardo Montalban as Khan, you know,
unbelievable, and like you can tell, like Shatner's acting off the charts. Montalban's acting off the charts. They're like, you can tell they just like
James Doohan. He has to do, like, he has some intense scenes too, because he's like suffers a loss, you know.
All the way to the very end, they're like, he's already dead or whatever. They're like, it'll flood the room.
And Ricardo Montalban as Khan, he you know, it's like, you know, very 80s. He's got one glove.
One glove, yeah.
one
His hair catches on fire.
It's like one glittery glove too. It's glittery too. It's I watched but yeah, it's just got cool spaceship stuff, like spaceship fighting. It's not like the Star Trek the Motion Picture. It's just these like super slow motion shots of like spaceships, like, you know. But this is like, yeah, a lot of action, adventure, and like intensity, a lot of intense emotion. Like Ricardo Montalban is in like the same zip code as Shatner.
Yes.
Like they are doing, like, it's a very stylized acting. It's not like the way you'd see somebody walking down the street acting, but it's like so perfect for like for the big screen.
And I love his crew too.
Yeah.
They look like the kind of like Warriors adjacent.
Yeah, the Warriors or the Road Warrior, like Mad Max kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it is kind of a cool design, especially when you like juxtapose it with like the original episode. Like I was watching Space Seed, which was like the episode that this is a sequel to.
Oh, I didn't realize. No.
Yeah. Again, for years and years, like I watched Wrath of Khan, and I knew about Khan, and like, you know, that iconic kind of like gray haired like mullet, that look. But yeah, it was like kind of years later that I'd heard that, oh, it's a sequel to Space Seed is the name of the episode. And I was just watching it today. You know, I'd seen it a bunch of times, but it's like when you compare it, it's such a great setup. Khan is like such a great character and a great sort of nemesis for Kirk in that episode, but it was sort of a done in one. It was like you never saw him again. He wasn't like a recurring character, but really, you know, a great, you know.
I gotta watch that. What season was that in? 1, 2, or
Space Seed? I think was.
Because I've got season 2. Hopefully it's in there. I'll check.
It might be.
Awesome.
Space Seed is season 2. Because I also watched Balance of Terror from season 1. I watched both of those today. Because it's kind of like those two combined make the Wrath of Khan. Like it's
awesome.
And maybe there's like 1 or 2 other episodes that they pulled from for this movie, but those are like the 2 main ones, because Balance of Terror is this like, it's almost like a submarine chase. It's like these 2 spaceships that are kind of like dueling with each other, and then kind of blindly, like they're not sure where each other are, and they're you know, it's like that. And it's a but it's the Romulans. Like I think it's the first appearance of the Romulans. It's and it's before the Klingons. So like the Romulans were like the first sort of like enemies, and then the Klingons come a little later, and they're chasing them through space. And the Romulan bird of prey, the ship that they're chasing, kind of looks a little like the Reliant. It's like sort of like a disc with like two little engines like going off to the side, but like at an angle where the Reliant they're kind of under. So it's kind of that aspect of Wrath of Khan, of this like cat and mouse spaceship duel, and then Space Seed is like carries over like story wise, and where Khan and his people are sort of like unfrozen, and then they're not sure what their story is, and then it turns out they're like these genetically modified conquerors, like from like the Earth's past, and one of the members of the crew of the Enterprise, like she falls in love with Khan, and then it becomes like Bonnie and Clyde or something. Like she kind of teams up with him. But when Khan talks about like, oh, my wife died, I assume that's who they're referring to, because like she, her and Khan are like, become love interests in the course of it, and then like they go to SETI Alpha 5, like Khan and all his people, and then that member of the Enterprise, they go to SETI Alpha 5 together, and they're going to start this colony. So like there's no point in the movie, I mean there's no point in the episode where he's like, hey, let's get married or anything, but like I'm assuming when in the movie he's talking about his wife died, I'm assuming it's that character.
That's awesome, man. I didn't realize that they pulled this from the show.
Yeah, because that was another thing. Another course correction from the first movie was like maybe tie it into the show a little more, and so that was to make a sequel, and like a sequel with a good villain,
Yeah, and so was Star Trek 3 already like planned out, kind of at the?
No, I mean like they hint towards a resurrection for Spock, but Leonard Nimoy was kind of like Harrison Ford, I guess, or like Mike Nesmith or something. Like they were never sure that they were going to have, like he would always be the holdout. So they didn't think they'd be able to get Leonard Nimoy for this movie. So the initial draft, Spock wasn't in it. And so Kirstie Alley was going to become sort of like the new Spock. When they got Nimoy on board, then it was like they added him to the mix. But there was a version of this without Nimoy in it. And I'm assuming the search for Spock was the same. It was like, they put Harrison Ford in Carbonite because they weren't sure if they were going to get Harrison Ford back for another movie. And so they kind of put him in a little tube. So it's like, okay, if we don't get him back, then if we don't get Nimoy back, then we can just sort of leave him on that planet. Or that tube can open up, and then it's like a new actor. It's like, I regenerated, and like
I love that.
Yeah, or it's like a younger actor, it's like Zachary Quinto or something. Like it's a younger actor because it doesn't have, but they did get Nimoy, so they were able to.
They're covering their bases.
Yeah, but they didn't have it planned out, and Shatner talked about this when I saw him, but like this is also kind of famous lore, is that the Star Trek movie came out and it underperformed, but then they were going to do like there's still like interest and stuff, so they were like, okay, we're not going to make another movie, but we'll make a made for TV movie with like 1/10 of the budget. And so that's what this was. It was like 1/10 of the budget. They're making a TV movie, and but then they decided like, okay, when it was crunch time, it was like, okay, we're gonna make this for theatrical release, but still with the same budget, still with this like nothing budget.
You know what? They maxed the budget out. I think it looks great for whatever budget they had.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, those budget constraints really help, because you got to be lean and mean. You got to think on your feet, and they get the most out of, like, again, you look at it and there aren't a ton of locations,
no,
but they get the most out of their locations. And the locations are kind of these claustrophobic settings, these like kind of, because you think about like the motion picture, it's like you have all that stuff inside of V'ger, and then you have planet Vulcan, and and these like spacious sets, and you just don't have that at all here. It's like very tight, but it's like you don't need that stuff. You just need good characters,
and that makes sense too with like the holdouts. Like, as the series go on, they keep enticing them back by, like, offering them directing gigs.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, you're exactly right. And they, with the stuff with Kirk and like, oh, you're getting old and stuff, they were also doing kind of like what they did with the what J.J. Abrams did with the Star Wars sequel series, is they were trying to like kind of hand it off to a next generation, because they figured like, how long, it's like James Bond, Roger Moore's getting old. He can't be James Bond forever. He kind of stops being James Bond not too long after this. And like these guys, it's like, you can't have a bunch of young, like you look at young Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher over here. If we're trying to compete with that, we can't compete with all these, these old bags,
I like how it's like Star Trek 2 is the last ride for these guys.
Right, exactly. But meanwhile, yeah. No, exactly. That's the funny part. And so they're kind of handing it off to a next generation. So you'd have Kirstie Alley becoming like, maybe the new captain or the new Spock or whatever. And then you have Captain Kirk's adult son who could maybe fill in, or like maybe Kirstie Alley is the Vulcan captain, and then James Kirk's scientist son is the science officer. So you have a Vulcan captain and a human science officer, a reverse, but with sort of a connection, like it's Captain Kirk's son. And so you could get this sort of new cast. And yeah, like you said, like this is the last time we see them. But
they go into a retirement home at the end of this one.
Well, yeah. The thing is, you have to, if you want that to be but you sort of have it both ways, because it's like, okay, well, if we need to do that, we can, but and then they don't. Like it's not like the J.J. Abrams movies where it's like, okay, Han Solo died, we can't use him anymore, and then Luke Skywalker died, can't use him any. Like, it's not like that.
Well, I still haven't seen Star Trek Generations.
You haven't? Now, what's keeping you from seeing it?
So
that's his big the death of Captain Kirk.
That's why, like, I remember being at my buddy Brian's house, and his older brother Jeremy went and saw it with his buddy, and I remember being in the room, and he came back, and he was like, "I can't believe it, they killed Kirk," and I was like, oh my God! I made a
no.
I mean, then I was like,
maybe you're better off, but we're gonna have to review it at some point. So if you want to review it without having seen it,
no, I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it. It's breaking news, but I was so hurt. I couldn't believe they killed Kirk.
Well, the guy who wrote the script was Ronald Moore, who wrote the more recent Battlestar Galactica. I was going to say the new Battlestar Galactica, but it's like 20 some years old at this point. But it's not the 70s Battlestar Galactica. But he wrote the script, and he said when he wrote like Kirk's death scene, like he was crying at his typewriter, because it was like he was killing his hero. Like Captain Kirk was his hero.
I was so sad when he told me that. I was like, and I made a point. I was like, I'm never gonna watch Generations.
And it wasn't like, it wasn't like some of these, like it wasn't like Han Solo's death where he falls into like this pit, and then you don't see like where he goes or what happens to him. It was very like, you see him just kind of lying there, dead in a pool of his own blood, and like it's pretty like you don't come back from that. And they're going easy on the old folks, and again, because this might be their last one, but yeah, then they do Star Trek 3, Star Trek 4, Star Trek 5, and Star Trek 6. They do Star Trek 6, and then they do Star Trek 7, which is Generations, where they hand it off. So that's a lot of movies for people who, and even like, so like Captain Kirk's like son is like, looks like he's like 30 some years old. Yeah. So like that places him in an age bracket, and so like the mother, like who is like Captain Kirk's like love interest in this movie, she's an older woman too. She looks like she's like Shatner's age or whatever, but it's like, like if they were making this now, it would be like Shatner at the age he is actually now, and then he's got like a 20-something girlfriend, like that would be the way they do it now. It's like they're getting ready for a handoff, but it's like, no, this is working. We're gonna as long as everybody else is game, and like these are the people we want to see. Like it is.
Oh heck yeah! Oh, what a great special effect. So nasty. Get it, Shatner. That's so cool.
But the one thing, and I think we talked about this in our Search for Spock episode, but the one thing is like the one thing this movie's lacking, and one of the things I loved in the old Star Trek episodes is like the fighting. There'd be like a scene like and Kirk and Khan never have a fight scene. Like they never duke it out in this movie. And I also feel like if they were writing this script now, they'd have to find some way for the two of them to like grapple. And again, maybe that, and it's just such a classic as it is, and maybe there's something to keeping these two guys like kind of separated, but like you want to see that, like, and they do fight in the original episode in Space Seed. There's a great like, you know, where they're like they have the what's it called, the master shot or whatever, where you know you see them like, you know, rocking and rolling in the cargo bay or whatever. But it's like, yeah, that would be. But the only fist fighting in this movie is Captain Kirk fist fighting his son. Like that's really the only fist. Like, you know.
Here, I think we're gonna get it here. I get excited because he's telegraphing the Khan like a mile away. Mm-hmm. Like he starts the build up, and also I think I like every time I rewatch it, I'm like, oh yeah, I can't wait for that scene where Khan and Kirk like throw down.
Well, yeah, because
I keep forgetting it.
I think Star Trek 3, there is the fist fight, but like they duke it out in their spaceships, but eventually, you know, Captain Kirk and the Klingon captain go at it, and it's very nice. It's very like, you know, I'm glad we finally got that in one of these.
In Star Trek 5, Kirk's doing like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon level like wire work.
Yeah, like I think they're trying to go easy on, you know, like it's like, okay, we don't want to overexert this guy, which I guess now, you know, we don't want to overexert this like 51-year-old, you know, meanwhile
he gets his letter from the president returning.
Yeah, Willard Scott wishes him a happy birthday. The ideas like people had about age back then versus now, because Tom Cruise is probably like 30 years older than whatever Shatner is here, and he's still, you know, they still have him doing the
or
action
like
stuff.
Tony Stark, like Iron Man, like Robert Downey Jr. He's like, his hair is like the darkest chestnut.
You can't argue with this movie. It pulls you in every time. It's got a great opener, great character stuff. You're you know, the laugh out loud moments too, like watching it with a group that were laugh out loud, you know, just the line, are you out of your Vulcan mind? Like that's brilliant. That's DeForest Kelley gets to say that.
I can't wait. I had mentioned it before, but there's a new book. It's like The Future Was Now. It's about the summer of '82. And there's a whole like section.
So many great movies that came out around this time. And again, like Tron, I feel like Tron, it was just like, it was like Tron underperformed at the box office or whatever, but it's like, that was some tough competition. Like put that out any other year, you know, but it's like, yeah.
There's a couple other things we might want to cover before I was reading an article about the book in the New Yorker, and they mention there's a section written about that Dark Skies E.T. screenplay we have to read, that they're like focusing on that. So we might want to peep that.
I would like to read that. Yeah, just for that.
I'm excited.
But it does sound interesting. Like, and I was like a little kid right around this time, so you can imagine like the effect it had on me. Like I just have this like lifelong love of science fiction and genre stuff, and it was like every week there was some crazy new science fiction, and it was just like, oh, this is just what movies are. And then as you got deeper into the 80s, like it thinned out considerably, and it's kind of like, oh man, like how come there's not
every week you get Blade Runner,
E.T.,
Mad Max, there's the Conan the Barbarian chapter. It's just so watchable. It's,
very watchable.
With the way Star Trek is set up, like the layout of the ship, and how just the way the ships are set up and how they communicate. Like the Star Trek movies can be like hangout movies, and they can just luxuriate in them, and like you can kind of jump in at this movie at any point, really.
Yeah, and I mean, what an ending too. Like it is. If you make a movie where like revenge is a big element, you sort of have a responsibility to show. I mean, as much as I love the Quentin Tarantino movies, it's kind of irresponsible to make like a movie where it's like, yeah, like revenge. Like it's you have the responsibility to show that like revenge is gonna do you in, and Khan is really going down that path. Like he has all these opportunities where he could like get, cut his losses or like do this or that, but he's just got to do it. He's got to do it. And you know, it's just very watchable.
It's not a revenge-o-matic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like also, so you got great character stuff. You got, exciting, spaceship stuff. You don't have fisticuffs. That sucks.
Yeah.
You have the creepy alien things, but then you also have like some cool sci-fi ideas like the Genesis device, and so that's kind of a cool
I love
sci-fi
that
idea, and it's sort of that Genesis device kind of propels the next two movies after that. Like they talk about this as like a trilogy, as Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, and Voyage Home are kind of like a trilogy.
I love that. We should do part 4 next.
Yeah, part 4. Yeah, part 4 is a good one. That's the Leonard Nimoy one,
or maybe
the Nimoy directed one,
or maybe Generations. I haven't seen it. I'm tempted, but
Generations sounds like a good one just because for that reason. But Star Trek 6 is like
love 6.
What a nice sort of like farewell. Again, there was Generations, but it was sort of a nice farewell to like, okay, these original Star Trek, ones, like, and it was just self-contained, kind of like a political thriller.
Yeah. But, like Star Trek 6 was the first Star Trek movie that I like really focused and saw coming.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could see the previews and stuff. Like Star Trek 5 I was kind of like too little.
Yeah.
Like I didn't, I just caught the peripheral of that. But like 6, I saw the trailers and like
Star Trek 5, I saw the trailers. And I was so excited, and I was like, I didn't realize they were gonna make any more Star Trek movies. Like I thought but again, like up to a certain age, like when I was a kid, I kind of felt that with everything. It's like they're making a Ghostbusters 2. I didn't know they were gonna make
so
like
awesome.
The only one. Like I thought, like of course there's gonna be a never-ending supply of Star Wars movies. That's a given. But everything else, I was always like shocked when there was a sequel.
I miss not like knowing what's coming out until you like read it in like some weird newspaper article and stuff.
We're kind of jaded at this point, but yeah.
Like I would cut out like I have to show you my old collection of like newspaper ads.
Well, yeah, you showed me the clipping of you showed me the Michael Keaton clip.
Oh yeah. For Batman Returns.
Yeah. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Godzilla's Monsterpiece Theater, a new comic from IDW.
And I'm Matt Zeoli.
And yeah, we'll see you next time.
God.
Yeah.
God.